Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last Peer Recovery Support Services Community Practice of 2019. We'll be following up shortly with what 2020 has in store. Thank you for being here today and joining us in this newer location. Let us know if you've been in the old location. Let us know how you feel about this spot. My name is Melissa Schrommel. I am the coordinator for this community of practice, and I work for the Community Health Institute and under the Center for Excellence, which is funded by the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol Services to coordinate a variety of community of practices across the continuum. And I'm joined here today by Reka Sridhara from the Community Health Institute and Adelaide Murray in the back. And we also have a planning team with us today, Lindsay Keller from BDAP, Cheryl Pacatelli and Polly Morris from Harbor Homes, CFO, and Keith Howard from Hope for New Hampshire. So that is the group that brings this to you, and we meet regularly to make sure it's relevant for the field. We do have one person on the phone. I will say we're going to break out into some group discussion, so we probably will pause the phone for that piece of it. So I apologize for that for those who have to join us remotely. The topic today is a part 2 from our meeting in July. Who was at the meeting in July? Good, so a couple of people. So we addressed the topic of burnout among staff who deliver peer recovery support services. And it was a great presentation by Art Woodard from CCAR, but we did not have time to talk about it. So the planning team really wanted to bring it back and be able to talk in groups as staff and volunteers at peer recovery organizations and also administrators to develop a culture of wellness. So that is the goal for today. But I do want to advance the slides. I'll just go over our agenda. So I'm going to give welcome introductions, give a brief overview of the community of practice for any new folks. Is this anyone's first community of practice? Welcome. I'll give you a little overview of what it's all about. And then we have Liz Seaman here today to bring us through a breathing exercise to give us some tools for our toolbox around wellness. We're going to go over the key takeaways from our July meeting. Since we realized not everyone was able to make it in July, we want to talk about what was discussed and then hear from some folks from the field of what they may have been doing the past few months to address wellness at their organizations or individually. Then we're going to break up into groups and have some facilitated discussions led by Lindy and Cheryl and Polly. And then we'll bring it back and hopefully get some action steps so people can leave with some short-term, what can I do the next week, what can I do in the next 6 months, the next year regarding wellness in personal lives and also at organizations. And then we'll just wrap up, and you have an evaluation in your packet. We're hoping that you'll fill that out and let us know how we're doing and what we can improve on for the next year. So what is a community of practice? So according to Wenger, community of practice refers to a group of people who share a common interest, passion, or concern for something that they do and who interact regularly to learn how to do it better. So we bring individuals who work in peer recovery together on a regular basis to talk about what you do and hopefully improve your practice. There's 2 components to the community of practice. So we have these in-person meetings. Currently, this community of practice meets 4 times a year, so we meet quarterly. There's also an option to have conference calls if there's an urgent or a relevant need in the community to host one of those. We have resources and tools available on the New Hampshire Center for Excellence website that's available to all participants. If you aren't connected to that, please reach out to me. It has all of the recordings and PowerPoints and materials from any community of practice that we've had in the past, and as well as other resources. There is also a Google group that everyone is invited to participate in. It's an online platform to share events, information, and ask questions to the community. We maintain that list, so if you send out a question, it's out to everyone, so it kind of expands your contact list if you kind of are at capacity, you're not sure if you're reaching the right people, like these are your people, and you might be able to get some answers to what your questions are, have discussion about. The New Hampshire Center for Excellence also offers technical assistance. And if you have any questions about submitting a technical assistance request or what that means, please reach out to me, Addie, or Rika. So today's objective is to identify signs and symptoms of burnout, to describe strategies that PRSS staff and volunteers can use to address burnout, and to describe strategies that strategies at the administrative level to create a workplace culture that is responsive to that burnout. So to get us and me, I think I needed to, a chance to center ourselves and breathe. We're going to have Liz join us and lead us.
Would it be better if I went up there? Okay. Hi, I'm Liz. I'm from the Keene Serenity Center. Been a yoga teacher for 17 years, teaching currently at the jail, Cheshire County, as well as a CRSW and working at the center. And so I'll just share with you how I would normally center at the beginning of a yoga class, and we'll just see how it goes. I invite you to just sit up nice and tall. Make sure both your feet are flat on the floor. You can rest your hands in your lap if you like. And then just lengthen your spine so that you have this sense that there's maybe a puppet string being tugged on at the top of your head. And I invite you to close your eyes. Sometimes it's easier to go inward when your eyes are closed, but if that's not comfortable for you, certainly keep them open. And you can take your gaze down to something and just kind of hold your gaze there. So begin by just taking a full, deep breath in and letting it out through the mouth. It's called a cleansing breath. So just inhaling, opening your mouth. Let's try that one more time. I didn't hear a big release. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling. It's a little better. So just take the first few seconds, maybe 10 or 20 seconds, just to kind of become aware of your surroundings with eyes closed. Notice any sounds that you hear. Notice the feeling of the chair underneath you supporting your body's weight. You may even notice some warmth coming from your hands as they rest on your thighs or knees. And then just begin to check in. Right? We'll do a progressive relaxation exercise. All of this is meant to help with grounding and becoming present in the moment. So we can do that by tuning into our body's physical sensations, starting with the crown of your head, working your way down, letting your eyes soften, letting your cheekbones and your jawbone relax. Even notice where your tongue rests in your mouth. Allow your shoulders to soften away from your ears. Your hands and arms relax on your legs. Just allowing all mental tension to drain. Allowing your internal organs to soften. And your belly can take as much room as it needs to breathe in and out. Noticing the muscles in your legs, tension in your ankles, your feet, even down to your toes. And then become aware of your breath, just as it is in this moment, without making any effort to change it. And notice, too, by just bringing your attention to the breath, how it does change, by simply bringing your focus onto it. If you can, begin to breathe through your nose, both on the inhale and the exhale. And see if you can begin to lengthen the inhale as well as the exhale, taking a little bit longer, almost like you're sipping the air through a straw. And then adding in the breathing and the diaphragm. So we start with the belly. As we inhale through the nose, we allow the belly to get large, to fill like almost a balloon. And as we exhale, kind of feel the belly pulling in gently toward the spine. And on your next breath, allow that belly to fill, but take it a little higher into your rib cage. Let the ribs expand outward. And then as you exhale, the ribs slowly knit back together and the belly empties. On this next breath, we'll take it from the belly up into the rib cage, but now let it creep right up into your lungs, all the way up to maybe your collarbones. You can almost feel the breath at the back of your throat. And then exhaling all the breath back out. So the key here is to not shorten or cut off the breath, but really let it take its cycle, whatever form that takes for you. Not rushing it, just kind of letting it happen organically in your body. And then finally, we'll just take your palms together, resting your thumbs gently on your heart center. And just take a minute in your mind to create an intention for your day. There's no wrong answers here. It's just anything that comes to your mind, something you're working on personally. And just deliver that intention out from your mind into the universe. Letting go of any outcomes or expectations. And when you're ready, just let your eyes open. And take a look around the room. And just greet people. Do that in yoga. Morning. 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 Thank you so much. And you're welcome.
Well, I feel better. Thank you so much. Abby, my colleague, and I went to a conference earlier this month, and it was on wellness and self-care, and we had that, and I just really wanted to bring that here as a tool for everyone. You're too relaxed. I know. Fantastic. Wait a second, it will come back. So we also set an intention, but where are we at for time, actually? 10:22, sorry. Okay. So we set an intention, and I think we wanted to think about your intention for this session, whether it be to get through the next 2 hours, to learn something new. We're going to be breaking up into groups. You might be meeting new people and hearing new ideas, taking that in and learning from individuals. that may think like us or not like us. Is your intention to try not to think about everything you have to do back at work, to just be present, or to spend some time focusing on yourself and your self-care? So I'm giving everyone the permission to give yourself permission to breathe, to learn something new, to be open to new ideas, and to value the time you're spending here today. Because that time you have, that you're spending here today to work on wellness and self-care is self-care in itself. And having a lifestyle of wellness requires investment every single day. When I talk to Michelle, she'll come up in a little bit about ways to invest in yourself every single day, whether it be a half hour, whether it be a small piece of your day, but really making that intention to invest in your well-being. And then, just to quote, the well-being of each is intimately bound to the well-being of all. So, I thought that was relevant. So, as I said, we went to this presentation at the NADAC conference, and Dr. Tara Matthews had said something that really spoke to Adelaide and myself, and I think everyone in this room. So I'm going to read it from here, so I apologize. So, we are not perfect or impervious to the stress of daily lives and the vicarious trauma of working in the field of addiction. Everyone needs help, including us. In fact, being in a profession of helping other people, you're more vulnerable to needing to support yourself. And as Art mentioned, we particularly like this, if you took care of someone else the way that you took care of yourself, would you be guilty of neglect? Really priming you up.
Sorry.
So this is a slide that Art had, connecting all the components that make up the people that we are, including intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors, and keeping that in mind that all of these things make us, we're bringing all these pieces with us to our work, to our home, and anyone that we are working with regularly. And Art did a little spin on it, just to highlight that our well-being includes being happy, healthy, and successful, and that our quality of life is a general well-being of people in societies. And that when we think about some of those more intrinsic factors, those person factors, we want to consider how well is our body functioning, how well are we able to think, learn, understand, and remember things. I have trouble with that. How well is your spirit, the very core of you? How well is your brain and nervous system functioning? Are you in a constant fight or flight? How well do you manage emotions and your thinking? So all of these things are impacting tasks and activities that we do every day, and impact our work, our family, our friends, and our communities that we're working with. You'll have this in your packet. It's another one of Art's slides. In the conversation and the presentation in July, Art differentiated between fear-based way of thinking and a love-based way of thinking. A fear-based would be I am captain of the world, and more holistic way of thinking would be we need each other. So I thought this was particularly helpful as a tool to kind of see what those fear-based ways of thinking might be that you currently have and how to make them more love-based. And in doing that, in promoting the love-based way of thinking, would contribute to relationship building, and helping to build collaborative and cooperative organizations, families, partnerships, and promote wellness among all of those. I'm going to have Michelle and Karen join us and share what their takeaways were from July, or what they've done personally or at their organization to promote wellness and reduce burnout at their organizations. So briefly, and then if we do have time, we'll hear from other people who maybe attended and want to share as well. So Michelle, how do you go first?
So I can share personally like what we changed at SOS and then what I did in my own personal life. So at SOS, we noticed like a lot of our employees were feeling burnt out, frustrated, tired, weren't taking care of themselves, and I can't force them to do self-care. I can give them a day off, but they can still just work from home. And so I decided to find out more about them. So I made like a About Me form, because that's what my kid does in school when his teacher wants to learn about him. And I was like, hey, can you send me your documents? For adults. And so she did, and I obviously changed it a little bit, but it was kind of like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite candy, snack, flower? What do you do for fun? Where do you get your favorite coffee? What is your favorite coffee? And then I convinced my boss, John, to give me like $40 a month, which I haven't even had to use, but we took it out of a funding that we got, I think, from the hospital. But and so when I noticed someone was going through a hard time, I would just bring them in a coffee, which was like, if it was Aroma Joe's or Dunkin's, it was like $2 or $3, Starbucks $5. But I would just like bring them a coffee and be like, hey, I know you're going through a hard time, have a coffee. If you need to take a couple minutes, that's totally fine. And just like trying to meet them where they were at, or if they came in and covered a shift because someone called out for me, I would get them a gift card or something and say, hey, thank you so much for everything that you do here. We really appreciate you. And that's been really positive. It was awkward at first because it wasn't a thing, so they were like, this is weird. I came in with flowers one day and she's like, this is odd, but I really like it. So that was an improvement to SOS, I think, overall. So when someone new starts, I'm like, here, you're in kindergarten, you have to like sign that all about me form now. But it's been good. And sometimes like $1 candy or something. It's not usually a lot. And then I try to remember if they're in recovery, I try to remember their recovery date. So then I look at the list on my spreadsheet, see what they like, and then I'm like, hey, you made it a year, you made it 2 years, I'm so proud of you. And then their birthday, and then like their anniversary date at SOS. Just try to make it like harder for them to leave, maybe. And so they feel valued and appreciated, that we're not just there like barking at them to do stuff, but we see that it's hard work and it's tiring and it's exhausting. And then for me personally, I have kids of my own and I work full-time and I'm in school, so like self-care wasn't a thing. But neither was like patience. Like I was short with like my kids and I'm like, this is not how I want it. But I wouldn't do it because I was always taught, and maybe it was just because we grew up in a religious family, that you need to take like a whole day of rest and you can't do anything. And I'm like, really? Because I like to organize, like that makes me feel rejuvenated, and I've been taught that I need to sit still and do nothing, which drives me crazy. So I can't take a whole day, that's not even like possible. Like, sorry kids, I'm on a day break. No eating for you today. So like what I started doing was Thursday night is my night. So just don't bug me on Thursday night, it's fine. Like I'm gonna go read a book in my room or take a shower or go get my nails painted or something that I like to do without feeling guilty. Even when the kids are like, don't leave us with Granny. Like, sorry, this is happening, I'll be a better mom for you. And then I try to do if Thursday's rough, like we have a football game or something, then I try to do something every day. And it's not huge, I don't take like 4 hours of the day, but maybe I stop and get a coffee and sit there and breathe for 20 minutes, and then I go back to work and continue on in my day. So, that's it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Michelle. All right, Karen.
Okay.
Come on up and share yours.
really bad at time, so I have a timer. The first thing that I did when I went back to the center after the training was, like, redo the training for the people at the center, because I thought it was really powerful and helpful. And if you cared for yourself the way you care, what is it? If you care for others the way you care for yourself, would you be guilty of neglect or abuse, is the way I put it. Really was impactful for people. So, we started the process of everybody looking at what they were doing with themselves, and seeing how that was impacting the way that they were behaving in the center. A couple of people needed some time off, so we had that happen. We started pulling back a little bit with how much we were over-involving ourselves with things, because, you know, we do this because of the passion we have for it, so it's easy to lose sight of when you're getting in over your head, I think. We've done a lot of work with establishing boundaries. I asked for help. One of the biggest things that I think you need to do to avoid burnout is to ask for help and have a really strong support. So I spoke with my director, and got some great feedback from him. I definitely started having activities in my life that were outside of the center, because the center was pretty much all I was looking at. I was doing things like reading, but it had become escaping instead of just self-care, so it still wasn't healthy. As a person in long-term recovery, like, I know the difference between escapism and healthy activity. So it allowed me, like, having that training really allowed me the opportunity to take a look at what I was doing, as well as to help everybody else look at what they were doing. So taking a day off and not doing anything is never a problem for me because of the depression that I suffer. So taking a day off and engaging in a fun activity that's social, that's planned, that I actually show up for, is a big deal. So I rented a side-by-side and went to this thing in Berlin called River Fire, and we did this zombie poker run that I've always wanted to do, and I mean, it was just wonderful, like ripping up the mountain, the side-by-side, and it was a lot of fun. And for me, going out and having fun without it needing to be productive is huge. Because I think a lot of my burnout comes from this need to be productive all the time, and this drive to be worthy, you know. And then if I'm not being worthy, who am I helping? You know, I think that I need, and we all need, to have this relationship with ourselves that he talks about, you know, a healthy relationship with other people, having a healthy relationship with yourself. You know, do I know myself? Do I like myself? Do I take care of myself? And I've burned out several times in the past, so I know what that feels like, and it isn't pretty. It's kind of how I got into this work. Cheryl knows. So it's really, really important for me to not just the work of not burning out, but lead by example, because I'm running a center and people are looking to me to model behaviors. So, you know, watching my boundaries, watching my level of involvement, making sure that I have time for just social activities that are enjoyable, not constantly being driven to produce or, you know, have meaning, because there's plenty of meaning all week long. Everything we do is meaningful. And looking for support from the people that are going to tell me the truth, and staying willing to hear it. And and that was something else he talked about that I remember, being willing to take the help. If we're not willing to take the help that's being offered to us, then we're really doing a disservice to ourselves and everyone we come into contact with. So that's my big takeaway. And amazingly, I saved it in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen and Michelle. Before we break up into groups, does anyone else have anything they'd like to say about what their takeaways were from the meeting in July, for 4 weeks.
So hi, everybody, I'm Polly Morris, and I just wanted to add on to those, and I was at the July meeting, but I just developed this, training. It's a 4-hour training, and it's kind of a mini version of the Recovery Coach Academy, but the major takeaway from it is self-care, that relationships are the bottom line for anybody, and that the bottom line of relationships is self-care. So if you're taking care of yourself in different ways, like the things that you already do in a day. So self-care, people always go, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I feel guilty. But we already do self-care in our day, taking a nice hot shower, having a cup of coffee that we really like, or whatever. So it's focusing on what we already do in your support networks, and then it goes into the relationship of other people and how you work with them, so keeping your limits of your time that you give, your boundaries of the people that you are working with, or even your own family, so setting limits and boundaries, and then the communication piece, so how you are communicating with folks around you to let folks know that you do need help, just like Karen said, that you can ask for help and that you're willing to hear it. So I'm happy to share it with anybody. It's like a 3-hour little mini training, so, and I've created some great materials to go with it, so it's interactive, and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. All right,
Michelle, is that true?
yeah, sure.
So I just wanted to say thank you, Karen and Michelle, for sharing, and I loved the idea that you shared with us. I think it's something that's super simple, but could be really effective. And I actually want to try to bring it to the organization that Melissa and Adelaide and I work at. So I was hoping that maybe you could share the form, just to get a sense of the questions, and I know it might be helpful for others. Yeah, well, I don't have kids, so I don't know, like, you know, what they do in kindergarten or whatever, but just wanted to get a sense of what's on there, and I know, you know, we can tweak it to, you know, the needs of our staff and whatnot, but figured it might be helpful for others to hear. Absolutely. It's an awesome idea, and super simple. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, hey. Cool. I'm excited to fill it out.
Yeah. And then I can get a copy for Melissa or somebody.
Look forward to that.
You know how they take their coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more question, actually. Have you shared it with other staff, the information, just in the event that they wanted to do something nice for their colleagues?
I haven't, but I probably would.
Pay forward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking
Like,
like.
hey, I want to do something nice with their favorite candy or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, I just keep it on like a spreadsheet, so I can just pull it up on Google Docs on my phone when I'm at the store.
All right, so, in order to stay on track, we do have, we want to make sure that we have enough time to really get, the good conversation that will lead to some actual items that we can leave with today. So, we're gonna break up into groups. So, I'm wondering the best way to do this. We're gonna be breaking up into staff and volunteers. They're gonna be in the room right there, room 2. And anyone who would be considered manager or an administrator at their organization would be staying in this room. And kind of the difference in conversation would be, at the individual, personal level, and then also, and here would be kind of like organizational wellness and culture. So that's kind of the different takes on the conversation. And then we'll have a couple discussions in the different groups, and then we're gonna bring it back, and Lindy's gonna lead us through, kind of facilitation of what's next and how can we work on this. So Cheryl and Polly are gonna be in room 2, and if you are a staff or volunteer, consider yourself in that role at your organization. Please join Polly and Cheryl in room 2.
Hands.
Yeah, sure.
Going where?
Yeah, before we break up, does anyone, can we just see, who considers themselves to be, manager or administrative? And then who would be staff and volunteers?
But it could be both.
It could be both. Okay, so we might ask some, if one group's very heavy, we might ask if you have both roles, that you might go to that other space, but we'll see how it shakes out.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm just, there were only like 3 or 4 people that are going through the other room.
Yeah, but some of them said that they could be phone.
Right, that's what I'm looking at, how many, there's like,
I'm flexible, it doesn't matter.
well, I think 3 people. Right.
Lindy, there's one person on the phone, it's a different person than it was before now.
I'm hearing fantastic things about you over there. Amazing, it's just the other side of the lake,
So,
but.
I asked her if she wanted us to keep the phone open.
We're trying.
I'm waiting.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Cheryl, how many you got over there, administrator?
So we looked on the sign,
Okay.
from what he put on his registration.
Oh, I see. You're isolating the troublemakers, okay.
Okay.
Surrendering attention.
So this is the group of administrators or leadership people. And I know people get attached to their seats, but this feels kind of spread out.
I'd like to move, but it seems like I'm in the perfect spot. I mean, I'll move.
Because we also, there's a person on the phone, and that way they can hear and participate as well. And I think somebody's recording.
Two groups, or should that one mark?
You know what? We can handle it. This is a one group thing, don't you?
Yeah.
Other folks, it's not that big.
You want to identify someone to be
I
a recorder at the end? I'll record it, but if they want to share.
Yeah, we'll get it done, and then give me a 1-minute notice before we have to break, and we'll
Yeah.
find a reporter.
I can give you a 5-minute and then a 1-minute, because you have 10 minutes total,
Okay.
starting now.
10 minutes total, and.
So no more process, all
And
product.
the first question is, what kinds of things, do you think cause burnout? And this is both for yourself and for the organization, so we might want to have 2 different lists, Melissa? Is that doable?
Yeah.
Can we do them at the same time, or would it be easier for you to record if we just do all the yourself and then the organization?
I don't want to restrict people if one is.
Okay, if you bring, wherever your brain's going, just identify this is self or this is organization, if that makes sense. So, what do you see in your own personal involvement at your job and/or for your organization that leads to burnout?
For me, I see that a lot of people organizationally take on a lot of the stuff from other people, personal stuff they take other people's inventory, they hold on to it, they make it personal, they just can't let go of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that, everybody signs up for everything. They all want to be team players, and so whenever I ask for a volunteer, it's like everybody says yes, which is great, but not everybody has time to do everything that we do, and so it's like recognizing that you don't always have to sit, today you can take a break, let somebody else sign up, because they're all so eager to be a team player that I never get any, no, I'm good.
Okay, others?
You just can't keep pouring out without stopping once in a while to refill.
Okay, so that's more on the personal level.
I think it's both, but I'd say personal.
And something, and I don't know how to put this organizationally, but on the way down here, I was talking to one of my staff members, and I recognize when people have signed up for a lot of work or have taken on extra shifts and all those things. The part that I don't see that I realized now I need to start asking is what's going on with their participants behind closed doors. So, like he just said to me, got a group of 4 guys that just got released from jail, and they were all doing great, and then one relapsed, one overdosed, one back in jail, and so that's burnout for him, because he had 4 guys that were doing great, and now 4 guys that are struggling. But time-wise, it still took him 1 hour at the jail. So in my mind, he worked for an hour. In his mind, he just had a crash. And so I don't see that, right? Because I see everything in like kind of time increments, how much effort they're putting in versus what's actually happening in that hour. It'd be like this or
Right.
So I'm gonna start putting them in the car and driving them around, because they all open up. Last time she was coming down here, I brought two down, and I was driving, and they were just, oh, here we go. And I said, you just record all of these conversations. My mom used to do that to me, right? I'm in the car, and they start talking. I'm gonna take staff road trips. One of the strategies for later.
Yeah, we'll say that for the next batch.
Off the leash, leaf peeping.
Other things that you think cause burnout for your staff or in your organization?
So for both the organization and the staff, focusing on outcomes instead of focusing on the work we're doing, and feeling like if somebody has a reoccurrence that I've been working with, that means that I did something wrong and that I need to go back and redouble my efforts. And given the nature of the folks that we're working with, there are going to be a lot of days where there's not great news, except for so-and-so made it through another day, but the bad news is really, really awful.
And I think probably goes for when they're so quick to take on when somebody has a reoccurrence or, has a setback that somehow they didn't do enough for their participant. But when that same participant reaches their 1-year mark, it's all about how great the participant did. They don't take any ownership of that. So why are we only owning when something goes wrong instead of when something goes right?
I would also say that some of it is the rules. When they want to help, they can help, but it goes against the organizational rules, and I have to tell them that they can't do it. Rides are a huge one, right? So that's just, I see a lot of added frustration from that as far as staff goes, because they want to, and I tell them they can't, and I know some of them are going behind my back and doing it after hours anyway. And I don't really want to come down too hard on them, but the same, it's like, guys, we're leading the path on this side of the lake. If we're not doing it right, then new coaches coming on are just going to think they can do whatever they want, and the frustration out of that is, even for me, is pretty high.
So that's interesting, because the first one was about people going beyond and taking on more. So that was a boundary issue, and now here there's the boundary issue that even as like the supervisor or the leader feeling frustrated that I have to hold people back from what they think they can do.
Yeah, one ride gets somebody their GED.
Yeah.
And if the bus or the van isn't running, geez, everything's 30 minutes away from where we are. What's a ride? I can go do some shopping at Walmart while they're doing it, and it's stuff like that, and it is frustrating.
You have 5 minutes.
I think too, my staff doesn't always identify when they need self-care or when they need to take a break. They'll just keep pushing, and then I just notice that they break down. And I have to be the one to be like, you're gonna take a couple days off. And so recognizing those, their own red flags, they're not very good at identifying those.
I will own that I model that. I do, and I recognize I'm terrible at it, but I run myself ragged, and that's what I'm modeling for the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here at 8 o'clock at night, and I'm here on Sundays, and I'm here, and I try to sneak it in so they don't see me doing it. That doesn't work out.
But they can identify it, they can feel it, they can see it, they can see when we're doing the opposite of what we're telling them. And
they gotta practice what you preach, because
Now, I've gotten better at that, but only because my personal circumstances have changed, and I have no choice. So they know I'm just as busy afterwards doing personal stuff, so, am I really modeling it?
So we're kind of shifting a little bit here, and let me ask for, not just personally as you as a person, but as personally in the position you're in. What kind of maybe added things as a leader contributes to your burnout? And you're already going in that direction, but I want to be specific about asking that. Yeah.
Oh, just a second. So for me, I think it's taking on all my staff stuff. They come in and we do supervision, and it's not supervision talking about what's going on in the program. It's more of, this is what's going on in my life, for me, I can't pay my bills. And I take all that on. I take it very personally. And I make it like my job to try to figure out things for them, get things paid for, their trainings, all kinds of stuff. And it weighs heavily on me, because I remember when I was in that position. So now I'm trying to do things so that they don't have to suffer through it as much.
And helping them navigate the needs that they have, just as much as they're helping the folks in the center navigate, and seeing like somebody come in with a toothache and have to come to work and not have access to treatment, and yet push and push and push for one of their members to get that service.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see somebody suffering and struggling and sitting through work and then saying, well, I can't go home, I can't pay my bills if I'm not here, and having to put that in place and saying, you need to go home and take care of yourself because you're not being productive here and you're only damaging yourself. But then again, turn around and remind myself that I need to do it for myself as well when I'm not feeling well.
And I'm going to say the weight of being responsible for everybody's job. Like, if there's no center, they don't have positions. And so I've got to get those grants written. I've got to make sure we're still in order next, like, there's 9 people who have livelihoods because the center is open. So, yeah.
Lindy, hammered on to have people start billing now that we're CRSWs can bill, and it's like, how come there's no more billing coming in? And I'm like, I don't know.
I think to your point about it being organizationally burnout, it's probably, what I'm hearing is coaching the coaches.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
So attacks leadership, and then attitude becomes a reflection of leadership, so really maintaining that leadership sort of momentum,
And that's
I think is the problem that I get out of this conversation that I'm hearing.
balancing between supervising and coaching.
Yeah.
Counseling.
But how do you turn that off?
That's the next suggestion.
Yeah?
Right now, we're just identifying the issues. What about some of those folks who haven't opened their mouths? There's like
balance between coaching and
supervising.
Thank you.
Almost like reconciling between operational expectations and the frontline work that's going on.
Folks who haven't said anything?
Well, I could speak to maybe culture, and so I'm technically a Harbor Homes employee, and what very little I know about Harbor Homes actually is that they have this policy where they roll out the red carpet for all their clients. And I don't think that type of policy in an organizational culture promotes healthy boundaries. And I can see how, like, that could be replicated in any kind of direct service, so like even down to the RCOs, like, I know Cheryl always tells me that I can call her like anytime, like 1 in the morning, she's going to pick up the call, and I'm like, I would never do that to you because I know you'll answer, but I also know that that's not a healthy boundary. So just kind of like that organizational culture that kind of promotes the lack of boundaries when you're in direct service.
And maybe to piggyback on that too, like a lack of uniformity in that throughout, because our organization really is 2 organizations. It's where we work, plus it's the FO. So it's a lot of interaction. So a lack of uniformity can sometimes be very inefficient for what we're trying to do, so.
And I think sometimes it weighs on leaders when we try to set the boundaries so that they do have room for self-care, right? When you go home, you don't give out your personal, but it comes back on you if this isn't fair, I want to help. So then it's like hard because you're trying to help them by, am I making sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like, you become the bad guy, but you feel like it's okay, I'm the bad guy in this moment, because in the end, you're going to thank me when you aren't giving people rides, answering your cell phone at 1 a.m., taking people home, feeding them from your own fridge. You just don't see it today.
And I think for those of us who are leaders who are also in recovery, it's really hard to maintain those boundaries, because if I'm at work and I need to treat somebody in a certain way, and then I'm sitting in a church basement on Saturday night and talking with them, and my recovery is much more important to me than my job is. And so so my only semi-solution is most of my recovery is done in Nashua instead of Manchester, but that's not possible for all folks in all parts of the state.
Doesn't work in our space.
Right, and so then, if you've known somebody in recovery for the whole time you've been coming around, and then all of a sudden you're needing to lay down, oh, I'm sorry, if you call me, I'm not gonna answer the phone because I am your recovery coach or because I know you from the center. That's a really hard thing to do. And then if you set up this is my friend, then you have all kinds of ugly dynamics that spring into the center that how come when Eric calls Keith, Keith is going out at 1 a.m. to have a cup of coffee, but if I call Keith, Keith tells me the next day that he's got to maintain boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, because Reagan just walked back in, good conversation. I need somebody who feels like they can do a good job of reporting out, not just reading through all these things, but giving sort of just a quick narrative of what we've talked about. Is there someone here who feels like they have that skill and be willing to volunteer?
I will.
Okay, not right now, when the other group comes. We're reporting out with the other group back here.
Yeah, so, if we had broken up into separate groups, now we would come back.
Oh, I thought you meant as like a
do that.
recap
So do you want me to
after the
have
meeting.
No.
I thought you wanted me to take notes
Sorry.
for.
So if we had broken up into 2 separate groups, we would have probably come back and been like, what did you guys talk about?
Okay.
What did you guys talk
Yeah,
about?
'cause that's what they're doing.
Yeah, but since we're one group.
Oh, we don't need to do
All we're
that.
in the conversation, we don't need to do that, so we could, if we feel like it's a good time to move on to the next topic, I think we could probably do that. And then when they come back in, we'll have, we'll have.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Wearing
John.
a name
I'm gonna go
tag.
put it on right now.
So John will be our, reporter, so.
Okay.
And maybe we can take some time for both of the discussions.
Okay. Well, or if somebody
Or-
else wants to be the reporter for the
Yes.
second question.
Yes.
All right. So, again, you all, being the leaders that you are, have already pushed us into the next question. So if we can take some time, and I'm gonna also make this kind of a dual question too, but maybe separate them. I'm gonna make this 2 questions. The first question is, and I wanna make sure I'm capturing what I wanna capture here. And you've already said some of this stuff, but how you handle situations where you recognize that a person is at risk of burnout. Okay? And, how much time do we have total for this?
25 minutes.
Okay, so let's take about 10 minutes on that, and then I'm gonna come back with a second question that's more whole culture. So not just, maybe I should reframe this, either how do you handle it, and I'm asking in a positive direction, or how do you think that you could handle it?
Somebody's reaching burnout.
If you're recognizing that someone's being that if you're reaching a challenging point for them.
Yesterday, we had one of our coworkers who was, and I had her come in and talk through things that were stressing her out. Is there solutions to those? How can we adjust your schedule so you're not so overwhelmed and take time for yourself? And so that's usually how I handle it.
I'd like to throw in, is there someone in specifically that is causing some of the issues? Because some of our recoveries are pretty demanding. And it can be just a shift of one person that takes enough pressure off of somebody.
Okay.
I think motivational interviewing with your staff is really good, to identify if they've changed some of those behaviors that are causing them to. And again, I change their schedules, I try to work with them, change things up, switch shifts with people. But when we were in the last conversation, I also wanted to bring up, there's, with the non-stabilization of peers across the state, there's so many different ways that peers are utilized. So in my setting, they don't go to AA meetings, they don't give rides, they are literally there just to support the clients in IOP. So I think there's a difference in how they get to burnout. My staff is really on the front lines where they're the first ones taking the phone calls when the clients call in for help, trying to convince them to come in and get help. So I think there's a little bit of a difference there, but determining that is changing their schedules, helping them to do some motivational interviewing and see where they're at, how they've changed things.
So you're working in a clinical practice overseeing the peer support there as opposed to being a director of a recovery community or a recovery center?
Yes.
Okay, good. Jocelyn, were you going to say?
We just started a recovery group for our staff and volunteers, so that there are no outsiders. So they don't have to go to cities away, have to take a recovery support group at the center every Friday.
Excuse me, can you hear her in the back?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just talking about you.
So that was one of the things we did to help them out, because they were trying to, well, they were expressing that being in meetings with peers and with other organizations and feeling like they had to be careful about what they could discuss with regards to their own recovery was a challenge. So we gave them their own private groups that meet this week. It's not a requirement, but they have time to do it.
That's pretty cool.
Excellent.
We do checkup from the neck up as supervision. And it's what one of the staff called in, so I was like, sounds good, we can remember that. So it really helps them, because it's one thing if I know what's going on with everybody, but I think it's important for them to know what's going on with each other, because that way when Bruce is snippy with Julie, Julie's like, okay, I know what's happening at home.
So you do group supervision?
We do group supervision, and so it's every week, every Wednesday, and so now we do at least once a month, if not more often, depending on how people are doing checkup from the neck up. And it is what's going on in personal life. It's not what's happening at work. This is what's happening at home when I leave this place that you guys have no idea what's going on with. Just so we are aware of it. Oh, you're going through a really tough time right now. I have no idea. Sorry about that. Now we're here for you, So that's helped, at least because it's, like I said, it's one thing for me to know what's going on with everybody, but I like for them to know too, because otherwise I have to intervene, being like, he's having a rough day, be nice. It's much easier when they just know it.
Do you do individual supervision as well on top of your group supervision?
No. Just a group. And then they come to me, for admin stuff if they.
Oh.
And I do individual supervision with everyone, and I try to focus on behavior more than feelings, because I never know what my feelings change from minute to minute and hour to hour, and I suspect that's true of most of us. But if I can look at performance issues or the ways that folks are interacting that I can describe, then it's a lot easier to identify signs of burnout than saying, how do you feel? Well, I just had a good meal, so I don't feel burned out. That's not really much of a solution, but if you are, regularly showing up late, if you seem to be dismissive of the folks that you're working with, like it's just a waste of time, those kinds of behaviors or recording of language, for me, are better than saying, how are you feeling?
So, and that also addresses some of the things that we talked about that boundary between coaching, being a recovery coach for your staff, and being a supervisor.
Right.
That's the supervisor.
Right.
That's focused on job performance, so to speak.
Right. And on behavior in general,
Behavior within the center.
Right, yeah.
They get paid time off, so I encourage them to take that time. Are you saving this for something? No. You need a day? Yeah. Okay. If you're saving it for something, I get it, but if you're not saving it, end of the calendar year, it's gone, so take it. And that's why we have it expire, so that way they're encouraged to actually use it versus saving it up and then
Getting a big payday
getting a
when
big
they leave.
paycheck, Yeah.
So does anybody have self-care plans, like formal documents that you use for self-care plans?
I have them do recovery we call them self-care wellness plans, and they're in their personnel files, and so when somebody is struggling, we pull it out, and I say, this is what you agreed to do, or how are you at, how these goals.
And do you have one of those as well?
No.
Okay.
So I'm not modeling, right? I already did it.
And I am just as guilty. I will, during supervision, talk with folks folks about their need to take time off and say, and I'll be glad to cover for you. I'll be glad to make sure that you're able to have this
I got it.
self-care. Yep.
Yep, I'll sacrifice so you can be.
Right, because you are really important to me. I don't really matter to me, but you are really important to me.
How would you be accused of abuse if you took care of others?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh.
Okay, I'm thinking we need to have a bunch of those printed up so people can put it,
Yeah.
you know, on their
Karen had a
computers
couple
or
too
something.
that I.
It's a good reminder once in a while.
Now, the best thing I did was, and they even moved it over to the counseling side, but I paired every single person up with a self-care accountability partner, because I can't watch everybody all the time. So they hold each other accountable for their own self-care, which really has promoted, not so much with me, but with everyone else, and anyone who, really, any team that rocks their self-care, we give them a certificate so they can go out to dinner together. You know, this small reward for taking care of yourself.
How do you
We pretty much can tell, we can pretty much, we have this couple that one is doing her horseback riding 3 times a week, the other one's at the gym every single day. It's a no-brainer that they got, it's almost not even fair to everybody else. to be honest with you.
Gotta switch up the partnership.
That's a good idea,
Yeah.
but it's, I never thought of that.
What did you say?
Let's break that
Switch up the
team up.
partners, yeah, so they
Ah.
can motivate someone who might need it
That's
a
a
little
great
bit more.
idea. That's what these meetings are for, right? Duh.
So once again, you are leading us into the next question, so before I go to that, are there any more specific suggestions about how you address individuals who are approaching? Okay, so the next question, yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
to not be afraid to talk about that and to talk about exit plans. I know that, one of the people who spoke in July was somebody who had worked for me, and for the last 2 or 3 months that we were together, we would talk about burnout and then talk about an exit plan.
So giving people permission to leave
Right.
and helping them to do
Which I
that
think is scary
in a
as
healthy
a
way.
person who's
Yeah.
in a leadership role,
Yeah.
where it's like, how
Right.
do I replace you? But it's okay.
Right.
Ah.
But on the other hand, how do I live with you
Yeah.
once you are burned out but continuing to drop
And behaving
paycheck?
the way that you're behaving,
Yeah.
yeah.
An exit plan, I like that.
You have 15 minutes.
Okay, so the next question, again, which you all, clearly a room full of leaders, is looking not so much at those individuals, but how do you create a culture that is preventative of burnout? So we just talked about when you're recognizing people on the road to it, but how do you create the culture? So your example, for instance, Eric, was more of that cultural thing. And what you shared with us early on was more of a cultural thing, how you change the organization so that burnout is less likely for people.
We throw some occasional field trips in, but just like everything, right? I'll stay back at the center so everybody else can go to Hampton Beach for the day.
I think we're seeing a really good movement to what people's action plans ought to be.
Modeling.
Stresses me out, no, I'm just kidding.
Other ideas for cultural changes that might help prevent burnout?
I think just discussing it in a group setting, bringing it to the front of mind, gives people a chance to sort of reflect, and then providing a set time that they know that they can come speak with you about how that's impacting themselves. Sometimes helps to just like jolt people into a little more self-awareness. So in the past, I've noticed that having 2 touch points with everybody is really helpful, right? So addressing it in a group format, just at a standing meeting. I came from an organization where we had standing morning meetings at 8 o'clock. And it's just 5 or 10 minutes, but you go over what's going on that day. Some of some of the priorities that people will be seeing or changes that might be coming. And then also blocking out the time for the one-on-one touch point so that, people that don't feel comfortable sharing it in the group, you can check in with them too. And I found that that is really helpful because you can connect the one-on-ones to any topics that you've used in the morning meetings. For instance, you could do you say 1 week you want to pick burnout and bring that to the front of mind. Every day you could do 2 to 3 minutes. Like Monday could be what is burnout. Tuesday is how do we recognize it in ourselves. Wednesday is if you feel like you are burning out, make sure you circle back with me during your one-on-ones, and those kind of things I feel can be very helpful to sort of build that culture. Because then everybody's on the same page too, and everybody knows that they have time with their leadership, but that their priorities are being communicated out to them equally.
I would say promoting time off and promoting, lunches. Lunches is a huge thing with my team. They hate taking them. They don't want to do it. I will go in and put it in their calendar. This is when you're taking a lunch. And just being that point of contact and letting them know that you are open to conversations if they're feeling that, and just really honing in on when you think they need self-care and promoting it. It's a big one.
Okay.
Maybe just doing a mindfulness activity during group supervision or any group meeting.
So do we think that it's a given that everybody will eventually burn out?
The question is, do we think it's a given that everyone will eventually burn out?
Well, it is an ICD-10 code now.
Depends on what.
It's a medical diagnosis.
It could be so many things. It could be so many things for so many different people. And I think ultimately, at one time or another, everybody's gonna hit a wall,
Yeah, I think maybe it's ultimately everybody will experience symptoms of burnout. It doesn't mean everyone's going to burn out.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's my hopeful.
Okay. With that turning this into me, although as somebody in recovery, I love to turn everything into being about me. But, I know the last job that I'd had for 5 years, things were going well, but I recognized that when I turned around from a vacation to come back to work, that I needed to get out of there. And so I came up with an exit strategy that was letting the board of directors know I'm leaving in a year. You've got a year to find my replacement. I will be glad to be part of that job search or not part of that job search. And that's what I expect I will do at Hope as well, is recognize this is not the way that I want to live my life, and give adequate time for the board of directors to look for somebody.
So I would not call that burnout.
Well,
I think it's a recognition of, it is a self-care thing. It's a self-awareness, a recognition that this isn't meeting my personal needs anymore, and it's time to do something else. I would say that if you stay longer, if you didn't do that, then you will reach a point of burnout when you just don't want to go to work anymore.
Like
you know?
dreading going to work.
I think there's a difference between saying, because if you can say, I'll give you a year, then you're not burnt out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm hitting the wall.
Waking up every day dreading going into work, and you're just miserable.
Forcing yourself to go or
Yeah.
not.
And you stop answering the phones or doing your work, then that's burnout.
But if say you're working 16 hours a day, right, which is common,
Yeah.
and you're all there in your work and doing what you need to do, and you're there for your clients or whoever you're working with, but you're neglecting everything else in your life, like, I would consider that burnout, in that you're not, yes, you might be present in your work, but everything else is just falling apart, or maybe not, but it's just your full attention is not there either, like, so I think, like,
not everything is flowing as well as you would like it to.
Again, and you said it's now an ICD-9 code. I'm sure there are symptoms that need to be met if you want to really officially diagnose burnout. And it does have to include a certain amount of personal misery,
Yes.
you know. So I would say what you're saying is, like, that's not, in my opinion, that's not good recovery. It's unbalanced, but it's not necessarily burnout. If we're talking about burnout being related to your job, you know, I guess you can burn out on a relationship or something too, but,
But if you're burnt out at work or towards work, your outside life isn't gonna be seen as great either.
you would think,
Just be
but
mundane.
it really depends, so.
Yeah.
Um, other cultural things, looking not so much at the burnout, but at the self-care, so how do you create a culture that encourages self-care for everybody on staff, which would include the leadership?
Would have to model it.
Oh, damn.
When I can, I take a lunch break and I go and walk my dog, and I tell people, I'm going to walk my dog. Not like, I mean, just because I want them to know, like, I'm out, this is
Maybe,
me time.
maybe when I do something like that, I can specify, I'm going to have some self-care time.
Yeah.
Instead of actually, hey, self-care, well, yeah, it's all about me too, right? I'm going.
Yes, again,
20
talking about it.
minutes, I'm taking 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I actually think that keeping a good, accurate calendar and task list and, personal goals is important for self-care. And I kind of make everybody do that and send me their calendars and task lists for the next 2 weeks at the end of every week. And we look at goals and we look at how the time that you're spending on things balances against your actual goals that you set for yourself. If you're spending too much time on something that isn't a personal high priority for you, that's a sign that you need to address. So I kind of go over those regularly. And it's easy to recognize when somebody's task list or calendar is not getting kept up with, that there's something off. So it's a reminder to refocus on that. So we just keep circling back to that on a regular basis. And self-care sounds like horseback riding and hiking in the woods and chocolate and all that stuff, but actually if you have a really strong system of keeping track of where you're at, that is a really good form of self-care, in my opinion, and so we try to model stuff like that.
I think too, from a leadership perspective, it's probably important to understand if each center is, experiencing a lot of staff that need self-care. Is that due to the events that are happening in the center, or is that just a coincidence because a lot of the staff are having personal issues? If it's the first, then sort of identifying certain events or things that lead to that could be addressed organizationally. You know, kind of separating those two out would be helpful from an organizational standpoint to see if maybe there's certain cultural aspects that need to be addressed.
And also saying no is the best form of self-care. Honestly, like just saying no to things. Like you said, everybody says, say yes to everything, you need an answer for everything, so it's just, no. Not easy.
So, I like, Daisy, the way that you talk about going out to walk your dog instead of saying I'm practicing self-care now, because then I think people are going to recognize, oh, Daisy's life has things other than work in it. Because I do think the phrase self-care has become almost a joke. Yeah, like,
Maybe.
I'm going to the bathroom because I need to practice self-care. Well, yeah, I guess that's literally true. But, you know, I think it is better to say, I'm playing tennis, I'm leaving work this afternoon at 3:30 because I'm playing tennis, rather than I'm taking self-care time, which doesn't say anything.
Because everybody's self-care looks different.
Right. Right. I would not find going shopping to be self-care. That's something that I do just.
Retail therapy.
Right.
That's funny.
Not a thing.
I think you do like shopping, Keith.
Others, I mean, I think we've got a pretty good list of things.
Do we wanna identify some areas where we wanna focus on for the group, the large group?
Yes, you're about to say something.
No, well, I was just gonna add one counter to everything that we've said. We've been talking about folks who work way too much and way too hard and say yes to everything. We need to be aware that there are also employees who think that going off for 2-hour lunches
Yeah.
because a friend is in town without clearing it with anybody, or just like, we're not surrounded by people in danger of burnout completely. There are also folks who need to be held to a certain standard, and I don't really want to bless 2-hour lunches as being a form of self-care,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's spot on. There are definitely people who leave to take their self-care time, lunch or whatever, and don't ever check in to see like, oh, I'm leaving one person alone in the center. They're like,
Right.
it's my lunch, I'm out. And so it's,
Right.
and you want to promote self-care, but at the same time, it's like, well, we all need self-care. And the only way we can all take that time is if we recognize when now's not the time.
Right.
Right, like I can't leave someone alone unattended at the center, so I don't get to go or take lunch right now.
And self-care can't become a trump card for leaving other people hanging.
Right, yeah. Right.
Well, and then it causes burnout for the other staff.
Right.
Now one of their coworkers is just off and doing whatever they want to do while they're sitting there doing.
Probably a good topic for a morning meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a good point, right, that we do have people who take self-care to the extreme of, well, this is about me,
Right.
taking care of me, and so how it affects you, not
Right.
a problem.
Right, I do need to take care of myself, because, if I treated anybody else the way that I treat myself, I want to make sure that I'm not guilty of any kind of malpractice.
So I think that kind of circles back around to what we talked about in the very beginning thing about boundaries, but it's on the other side,
Mhm.
So balance sounds like a theme here.
Yeah.
Right, that, do we have somebody who, wants to report out on this section? And it looks like, Melissa's really helping us here by pulling out the major points, circling or underlining them for us.
What a good student you must have been, Melissa.
I was a good student.
So I'm gonna get the other group in here.
Yeah, so, does somebody else want to report out on this side of things, or
Yeah, it's part of John's self-care.
if we want to, if John has offered, I just, I'm trying to balance things.
I just made a mental note to follow up with you in our one-on-one about that.
Okay, then John, are you okay
Yeah,
with doing
fine.
both? And
I can certainly do that.
you can get the general themes,
Yep.
not word for word. Okay, there's Stacy getting on the phone right now.
Well, so I was emailing, Michelle and Karen about coming, and I just had a crazy day, my son was, so I was doing it late at night, and Polly's like, what's that? Just ironic that you're emailing about self-care at 11 p.m. Yeah, it wasn't lost on me.
I have done that to people too.
Being adequately prepared.
This is my self-care. Yeah, I need to get it done.
Yes, it is.
Being adequately prepared for your
I can too.
Good.
Where is your closest sober living complex?
Who is close to sober living?
Anybody, don't you have one?
No, there's only the Endeavor House, female.
What sort of sober connection, so here's what I'm talking about. I have a friend, and I'm looking for people when they come in.
Yeah, over there would be good.
Okay.
And I know that you have people, we talked about
My self-care.
somewhere in the common, or somewhere often. But I think remember what you said, and I remember what thing we were at, that we were talking about.
We have centers here.
Okay.
But that's, construction people, So, I mean, you look at your employees, all I gotta do is notify the administrator. Council or in that center. My only concern is we got a lot of people who are claiming to be, but they're not.
Oh, you mean people coming in saying that they are and they're not, okay.
And then this, those stuff.
Yeah, so it'd be report out and then action steps.
Yeah.
Still working.
Right. Well, though I hear individual, you want people to will give anybody a shot. If they're looking for,
Individual and
and they start on the way.
our sensory
And they don't have to have a license, we're not worried about background checks, they go up, so they have to be on their age, I guess. If I was to train them, you don't have their licenses. Melissa, never mind that. They come and pick them up. Just put it on the.
still accurate, right?
Yeah. So, I wanted to work with, like Mount Recovery, but it's so far out of the way. Because we're going.
Okay, welcome back.
Conway.
Those of you that came from across the hall.
And we have guys that live in Conway. Yeah.
First, let me just ask, and even though I facilitated the one that was in this room, I'll close my eyes. Was it helpful to take time to think through these kinds of ideas?
Yes.
And I will ask for a raise of hands. How many of you heard something from someone else that you thought was a good idea for you? Okay. Want to make sure that when we do these communities of practice, that the way we're doing them is meeting the needs for all of you. So, good. All right, I'm tasked here with trying to pull all this together. So I think what I'd like to do is start with the folks that were in the other room, the staff and volunteers. And do you have a spokesperson who can just sort of summarize let's do the issues across the board first, and then the solution part, which was the second question. So Nick, can you share with us what you have?
Do it. I'm just gonna stand up so y'all can hear me and see me. I'm Nick. I'm in Littleton at the North Country Serenity Center. So some of the things that we sort of identified for causes of burnout are not setting up clear boundaries, taking on much more than our job description, setting up unrealistic expectations both for the work that we do, but also the work that our recoveries do. Emotional transference is another thing, putting your expectations for your recovery, those of us who are in recovery, onto a recovery. Am I missing anything else? Fib or face was on taking your the participants' active behavior personally as like you're not doing something as a recovery coach. Lack of clear communication between staff, and I think that's the ones that I can remember. Strategies that we came up with. Oh, okay, sorry.
I want to go to the other group where folks were asked about how they would recognize folks sort of that were going in burnout. And I'm going to just make an editorial comment here that I think those of you who are staff should feel really good that your leaders, your directors, the supervisors and whatnot came up with all the things that you did. So they know you. That's a good thing. And then, John, do you want to kind of give a summary?
Sure, so I kind of heard some of the same topics that we were going over, kind of mirrored each other. So again, that transference of, emotion, and when it comes to, taking on more responsibility, than maybe you have capacity for, or that you should be taking on, and creating an imbalance, on that level. Yeah, so focusing on outcomes again, not work that needs to be done, being overly invested, in certain things that you have no control over. And modeling too, as leadership, being that person who sets the example for the whole, either culture or organization, and leading in that capacity. Again, setting boundaries, I think, is another one that the other group came up with too. Knowing where those healthy boundaries lie, and making sure that they're uniform for everyone, to not create any sort of unnecessary tension or dynamic. And I think we touched on that, sometimes leaders that are in recovery have a hard time maintaining those boundaries. So just being aware of that. Again, relationships with certain clients, and then different ways peers are utilized across, line staff, clinical staff.
Oh, I think they were just talking about a lot of this stuff varies because we have folks here representing recovery community organizations,
Right.
but also people that are leading peer recovery staff within a clinical setting. And so there are some differences because of the setting.
And, I mean, feel free to jump in, Lindy. I don't know if I missed anything here.
Yeah, the only one that I thought was really important that came out was somebody pointed out in terms of contributing to burnout is that when people are coaching other folks or helping other folks, they oftentimes feel a sense of responsibility when something goes wrong with that person. But if that person is doing really well, they give all the credit to the person, right? That there's an imbalance there. Again, it all kind of falls under boundaries, but that, I thought that was a very insightful comment that was made. So let me just, before that, let me ask, is there anything from the group that was in here that you want to add from what John said? Okay, Carla, you have a comment?
I'm wondering what rolling up the red carpet for clients looks like for whoever said that.
So that came up in the discussion more around organizational culture and sort of balancing your operational expectations versus your organization's process for certain things. So when those two don't necessarily align, it can sometimes lead to burnout where you have that sort of friction between your own personal beliefs and the way that you're required to operationally function.
So that again, we're talking about different settings here. So that one came out of an agency that's actually under another larger agency.
Yeah, rolling out the red carpet was just a process that we used as an example of something where maybe our
The
own.
parent company had certain expectations that
where you have
didn't
to
really
reconcile
fit for
those.
peer recovery support services.
Okay.
Thank you. Others? Any questions about anything you've heard from either team? Okay, so I think people seem to be pretty well acquainted with what burnout is or looks like, either from their own experience or from the people in their organization having experienced it. And certainly being able to recognize some symptoms, that probably everybody's experienced some symptoms, and the idea being that we don't want to go from a symptom to a burnout. And so to that end, I think the second part of this discussion was looking at solutions. So again, I think we'll start with the staff side of things. Nick, are you reporting on this too?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I'm just gonna go over there so I can see it.
Yeah, the staff side of things about what kinds of strategies folks either either are using or could use
Right.
in order to help, avoid burnout?
So, someone said, strong supervision and working together, so basically, like, having, clear leadership that you can go to and address your concerns. Refocusing your work schedule, I work full-time, that used to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and it was always in the occasional Saturday. I talked to my boss about, just refocusing my schedule, going to 4 10-hour days, and really kind of taking that Friday for myself. I got that from my sister. It gave me a panic attack when she suggested it. Because I think that we are all kind of workaholics. We're about the work, and someone telling us to take a breather is panic city for me, at least. But doing that really helps. Recognizing that good enough, what is good enough, and don't let perfection being your enemy. So we tend to say, think that it needs to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. It is good enough. Social media blackout, or putting a timer on your social media use. So I do the blackout 1 hour a day. I am not on Facebook. You cannot call me on Facebook. Don't talk to me about Facebook. Karen puts a timer. And then she's not on Facebook anymore. No work calls or texts outside of work. So if you are not working your full hours and someone is texting you, just letting that go. When you clock in, you'll get to that work text, unless it's an emergency.
Everything's an emergency.
Yeah. Letting go of outcomes, and focus on intervention. People will do what they will. So just like, letting people be in charge of their own recovery, not taking that on. So mindfulness was something that brought up, and also like sending your people out on a field trip, even if you're not paying for it, even if they have to pay for it, is still really awesome, and you should think about it. We went to Canby Lake Park. That was NCSC got all the staff together, and we were like, we're gonna go to Canby Lake Park for a day, and we did, and it was awesome. We didn't even think that we were gonna pay out of pocket. We thought we were gonna pay out of pocket. Doris was kind enough to find money in the budget for us, so appreciate you, Doris.
Okay. Any questions for that group? All right, John, you want to lead us through? So on the administrator's side, we asked two questions. The one was how you can address and help people if you see that they are moving toward burnout. And then the second question was, what kinds of changes can you make within the entire organization that are culture changes that encourage self-care and prevent burnout? So there's two sides to this.
Okay. Yeah, as far as what Lindy was saying about recognizing burnout throughout the organization, some ways to get to that would be motivational interviewing, creating that capacity for the one-on-one time with staff. One of the centers is doing a recovery group for staff and volunteers on a weekly basis, so that they can have a safe space to discuss organizational or job-related burnout events, those kind of things. Again, check-in, personal time, individual supervision, just encouraging staff to take the paid time off. They have it for a reason. Small rewards for acknowledgement of self-care among staff, really bringing the concept of burnout and how recognizing that can create opportunities to use self-care to prevent a greater degree of burnout. So just bringing it front of mind and really acknowledging what we're going through. Permission to leave, making an exit plan, again, comes back to the self-awareness piece of it, just knowing yourself. Did I
On that side, the one I heard was, instead of it all being, responsible on the administrator, there's an organization that actually pairs people to help monitor each other's self-care. And then the team that does the best with self-care gets a prize. So, building that in, and I think there was another one I just thinking about. Having people do self-care wellness plans, and then periodically during the supervision, checking in on that.
And I think we said watching those who take advantage of the self-care and allow their coworkers to step up and do everything and take everything on.
So there was a big conversation about both boundaries and balance.
I think the key to that too is, setting that expectation organizationally so that everybody, clearly understands what the expectation of leadership is when it comes to self-care. But really, communicating the willingness to acknowledge it and make the time for somebody if they feel that they are recognizing it themselves, but really setting that expectation so that it's uniform throughout the organization. Really lets that staff sort of create a team environment where they know they're all held to the same standards.
And then on the cultural side of things.
So cultural side, again, discussing it.
Hey, we got the field trip.
Yeah. Discussion in group settings again, and then back to the promoting time off. Lunchtime, I think, is a huge deal. People are way too willing to, I guess, just work through lunch, but really, at some point in your day, you need that time to sort of reflect. I think sometimes the grind attitude is not necessarily a good perspective, because a lot of growth happens when you rest and reflect on sort of your environment and what's coming into you that day. So taking that time is really important for your body, obviously, to eat, but your brain too.
Yeah, your brain needs calories. Like your
Right.
brain, so if you don't eat, you're, not just
Right.
about the rest, but also the refueling.
Exactly, and but it's not going to be as good either if you're
Right.
working while you're eating, which everybody does every day, but kind of being mindful of that. Work-life, personal life balance, modeling self-care, again, like we talked about, being the example for the organization, and then we came back to setting boundaries, of course.
Okay. Any questions for this group? So, building off of the wisdom of the entire group, which you heard a summary of here and which you heard more in detail in your individual groups, we kind of want to move folks to do some action plans. So, and I'm looking at the people in my group because I know what most of you need to put on your action plans. There was a common theme there. So what I think would be a good idea would be just to take a couple of minutes and think about, and this is for everybody, including the leaders, one thing. Two, let's make it two, because that way if you end up not doing one, you can still do the other. So, two things that you can do to help yourself, and I'm going to not call it self-care because that came up, but to help yourself to be able to manage boundaries and balance within your life, and also to be at a place where you continue to want to do the work you're doing and to be able to do it well. on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not at all and 5 being really challenging, how hard was it to do that?
This part was easy, now coming
Okay,
through with it.
Wait. How many 1s was really easy to come up with it? How many 2s? 3s? 4s? 5s? Okay, so now those of you that are on that more challenging end of things know that you need to focus on this. And the 4s and 5s, I don't think there were any 4s, so there were a couple of 5s. So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take another minute and list what barriers will keep you from being able to accomplish what you just wrote. Like everybody came up with some. So your job on the ride home, if you're driving alone, you'll have to think this through yourself. If you're driving with other people, you may be able to have the conversation, is to think about what you need to do to overcome those barriers. Fair enough? All right, so we're going to go to the organizational piece. And this time I'm going to ask you just to come up with one thing, whether you are in the administrative side or whether you are on the direct line, and some of you are in both, one thing that you, not that your agency, the administrators are thinking about the whole, they can change the agency, but if you're a staff person, having heard the kinds of things that were discussed here today, still, there's one thing that you can do to help improve your organization's culture to support healthier living of the staff. That way we'll find out who gets a kick out of organizing field trips. So one thing you can do to contribute to the culture of the organization, becoming more respectful of the health of its employees or volunteers. And this is the one I am going to ask if there are any people willing to volunteer what they wrote on that one.
I have a good one. And this was, for me personally, as a staff member, I'm going to try keeping a boundary log. And just writing down, my, not in depth, but just my interactions throughout the day, and then evaluating it, reflecting, was this appropriate for me today? Or could I have done this differently,
Okay. Yes.
My big one was communication. I think, and across the board in my field, it's hard because it's so many people going in so many different ways at a million miles an hour, just like everybody else. So communicating clearly, is really a big one of what's going on, and then that positive feedback and the small gifts of, like, you know, of all the wonderful things they are doing every day, because that's huge, you know, so it's a big one.
Okay, others? Whether as staff or as leaders?
I guess for me is I'm just gonna have to flat out be more honest with myself.
Others?
I guess I'm taking sort of the last part of our conversation at the leader level about, people who sort of play this Trump self-care card, right? Like, this is all about me, and so making this a conversation about our roles as individuals as well as team members. So that self-care is more, I mean, the word self kind of automatically changes the perspective of it, so that we can help take care of each other. That's, you know, that's part of our self-care. We're a strong team,
Anybody else?
Okay, here's what I'm thinking right now, that, like, sometimes the task list is really long, and the actual deadlines are real in there, and you have to push yourself through to get stuff done, and you're not gonna feel guilty or like I'm doing something wrong if I have to work a little bit harder than I feel like I can, and I get a little bit tired, and then I take a break and rejuvenate afterwards. Like, oftentimes my self-talk is, I must not be doing my self-care right because I have more to do than I feel like I can handle this week. So that's my thing.
All right, well, I hope this was helpful, and I hope it will spawn other conversations within your organization or with your colleagues, and you know, maybe we should check in at the next one and find out if anybody actually made progress on one of the things that they said they were gonna do. But thank you all, thank you for a really good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for me. Just before everyone, heads out, if you are, LADAC or here,
Can we let Melissa finish her business stuff she needs to say?
Evaluations and handles to Addie in the back of the room. I'll be following up with a 2020 schedule of meetings, in-person meetings, and they'll be in the Concord area, here or at HAC or where, the planning team decides. Please return your name tags. These are new, that we created, so when you are working, you can easily recognize who you're working with, so make sure to return those. And use the Google group or get signed up with that and, ask questions of your peers. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, great.